Okay, now hang on. How about these? How about these? Look at these. We got Thor. Does this look like Thor?
It's not Thor.
Well, it says Thor right on it. Monster Hunter Thor.
What?
Yeah, it's Monster Hunter Thor. Wait a minute, hang on. How about this? What about this Superman right here?
Oh my god, he's so short.
Well, you know, don't hold that against him. We got Captain America. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. How about this? And they want you to touch his crotch. Try me. What is he? What happens when you try him? Nothing. How about him? Do you think this is creepy if they're wanting him to touch his junk?
Yeah.
Seems kind of weird. Alright, what do we got here? Huh.
The moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. We got a mail here called the Expansion Paradox. It is, gotta get to that. You know what's funny though? A lot of people are mailing me about distillery. I don't know how you got to pronounce these things as they're intended from Tech Bros, like distillery, kind of like that. That's how you pronounce it properly. Anyway, it's tough because I'll do a video talking about this. In fact, it probably will go out before this one. And on one hand, I'm the guy who's always like, we got to innovate. We got to try new things. Let's do new things. Let's try new things. But, so on one hand, I do support that. I want to support that. I think I need to support that. It's good to support that. I think this is a stupid ass idea, but I want to believe, the Fox Mulder here. I want to believe. I want to believe it'll be okay. Someday it'll be okay. Anyway, but let's get to this mail. We will do that video about the distillery in a minute. But this one goes, hello, Senior Perch. I kind of like that one. Unless this person means Senior Perch, in which case I'm not as fond of that. But if it's Senior Perch, I do like the flavor of that. It says, I have observed an interesting paradox in comics where stories from the big two, which have an 80-year foundation, still seem to dwell on exposition, okay, for stories longer than some indie comics. The Walking Dead was not an exposition-heavy comic. True. The Walking Dead was an exposition-heavy comic. You read a few issues and you get to the point. Even Spawn, the biggest indie comics legacy, doesn't feel the need to explain its lore as much as some modern comics. What do you think causes this paradox? Also, how much do you think is fair for writers on a big two book to assume readers know all about said character? All right. Well, okay. So why do we get so much of this? Why do we get this paradox, as you say? Simple reason. We get it because the comic is constantly flipping over writers, and because they're constantly flipping over writers, the writers coming on, they have to do a pitch. The editors ask for some level of explanation, and the big two have convinced themselves that you need to have jumping on points and be accessible to readers. And unfortunately, being accessible to readers means constant regurgitation over the story thus far. And then, what sets in is this insecurity about, oh my God, if we're going to get new readers, they're not going to understand what's going on. So we need to go back. We need to explain what's happening. And we need to make sure that's, we need to do that. And that's the story we want to tell. So there's this kind of this circular, circle jerk that goes on with comics where, the comic is uncertain about what it wants to be. And so therefore it then, goes into detail about, who it is, who it is, and then it needs to explain to the characters, and then as it explained to the characters, it needs to do a jumping on point. And if it does a jumping on point, then that's an entry model. But 8 months from now, you need to do it again because, if you did a jumping on point one time, you have to do it again. It creates this forever cycle that is thoroughly unhealthy for comics. And the indie comics, I think, in a lot of ways, more closely resemble what manga has going for it, which you have a singular creator. The difference between kind of the indie comics and the big two is, Robert Kirkman, he did all of The Walking Dead. That was his book. He knew the lore. He knew the story. He knew what he was trying to tell. And in his mind, he probably knew more or less where it was going to go. That's not to say he doesn't change his plan along the way and he kind of moves it around, but he's in control of kind of the starting and finishing point of the comic. So he doesn't feel the need to get in there and kind of, restate history. But the big two, because there's a revolving door of creators and even editors for that matter, there is this need to kind of reground on what this comic is and what it's supposed to be. But what I think is very true is the readers absolutely don't need this. I will tell you in a comic shop, and anyone who's gone to a comic shop, I guarantee you has had this conversation if you've gone to it for any length of time, which is, how many times do we need to see the fucking Uncle Ben dies scene, be it movies or comics, but especially comics? Like, we don't need to see this over and over and over again. We don't need to see Superman escaping Krypton blew up over and over again. We don't need that constant reminding of what's happened in comics. It's annoying to readers, and it's one of the bigger disconnects that I think the writers for the big two, or more likely the editors, have for the readership. The readers are good. They know they can follow along, and new readers, I think that this is one of those areas that I think is one of the hugest disconnects between the customer and the publisher, is the behavior I see in a shop. And again, anyone who's been in a shop, I think this will resonate with you. You go, you pick up a comic, it's more or less exciting. You have a good action story in there. And if you're curious, if you like it, then the excitement is to go back and buy the back issues. And the only thing I can think of why this is such a major disconnect, because publishers believe that, any kind of lore, any kind of high number, any of that stuff is poison to customers buying the books. And I'm telling you, that's never the case in the shops. And I know you can probably dig up a couple of retailers like Brian Ibbs or somebody who will tell you otherwise, but let's be honest, maybe those people don't know what they're talking about. Just throwing that out there. And that's unfair to Ibbs. I don't know how he'd feel about this particular situation, but I do know that comic publishers will listen to pals who are retailers who give them bad information, or in some cases just tell them what they want to hear. I've been in shops where, editorial people, management have come into the shops and they've said, hey, do your customers find it tough? When a comic gets like issue 80, do you find that they really want an issue number 1? And they frame the question in such a way that the retailer's like, yeah, number 1s are good. So they're not getting the truth. But to your last question, is it fair for the writers of the big two to assume readers know about said character? Yes, it is. It's totally fair. And if the readers don't, the fact that they don't becomes an incentive for the reader to buy more comics. I'm dead serious. And this is the most baffling part, is if you are somebody who's working in comics as an editor, member of management, other than that, you probably are at least mid-30s. You're probably 35 or older. High chance. And if that's the case, then you got started with comics during the 90s era, during the 80s era. That's when you got started. And if you got started during that time period, there were not that many relaunches and reboots and any of that. By and large, the people who are coming into that space were buying comics that are issue, we have 200, issue 100, whatever. And you figured it out. So if you figured it out, why do you think your current customer base is so stupid they couldn't figure it out? So cut it with the relaunches and the exposition. You don't need as much of that. I mean, One Piece has been going on forever. How many times in the, in One Piece, and One Piece, they do flashbacks like mad, but it's still not the same. You do not get flashbacks like, let's explain to you again how Luffy met Nami. No. You get flashbacks to that fucking chopper scene where, he's working with the doctor who wants to create a cherry blossom tree in the snow. They did that scene roughly 8 billion times, that thing. Everybody who's watched One Piece or read One Piece knows what I'm talking about. They went back to the well for that goddamn doctor so many times. It's like, I get it. You wanted to spread joy by making a cherry tree in the snow. Amazing. Great. We got it the first 500 times. Anyway, sorry. I do love One Piece, but that stuff drives me crazy. But anyway, my only theory as to why this works the way it is the publishers do not see the revenue from the back issues. Meaning, if the customer is going to go back and buy back issues, they're going to buy, generally an inflated price. These comics cost $10, $20, whatever the market value is. That money all goes to the comic shop. None of that money, other than the original purchase, is going to the publisher. And because they're cut out of that revenue stream, they don't understand it or respect it. And that is my theory of how we got here, how we get to this place where, nobody seems to care about back issues. That's my theory. But no, absolutely, 100%, no doubt. Writers can assume that readers are up to speed with the comic. They do not need to keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and it's weird that they do. But how about you? Do you like seeing the same, the same exposition, the same origin story 500 times? Do you need that to remember what's going on? Is that you? I mean, again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the comics don't need to care about continuity. Of course they do. But this isn't continuity. This is literally replaying stuff over and over and over again, or really need to explain. Peter Parker, he got his powers from a radioactive spider, and then he was he's kind of a dick about it. But then his uncle Ben was like, "Hey, bro, you need to stop being such a dick." And Peter's like, "Oh, fuck off!" And then he gets shot and killed. And Peter's like, "Oh my God, no!" That's what we're dealing with here. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.